By the time we matched spin with the Meridian, the rescue beacon had been running through our cabin for 20 minutes. A man crying out hard enough to strip his voice raw, with a woman laughing through it, as if she had heard the finest joke in creation. The Meridian was a luxury station, built for rich passengers who wanted velvet, private gardens, and plated dinners, while a drive dragged them between systems. It had vanished 7 years earlier on its first grand circuit, taking 800 guests and crew with it. The companies that insured it spent years fighting over who owned the wreck, assuming wreck was even the right word for something that never turned up. Then the station came back on its own, drifting 3 jumps off the route where it had disappeared, broadcasting bliss and agony on every open channel. Nate Dillard reached up and killed the speaker with 2 fingers. "Same plan," he said. Nate had run boarding teams in the Navy before private recovery paid better. Broad shoulders, head shaved close, voice flat enough to make orders sound like weather. He moved down the line with 1 quick look each, checking seals and harnesses with his eyes before he trusted us to do it ourselves. When his gaze reached Davey, it caught the loose strap on Davey's left thigh rig. Davey fixed it without being told. "Get in," Nate said. "Find survivors. Find a stable route to command. If the drive is still alive, we cage it. If it's gone bad, we shut it down." Tess Price sat across from me, strapping down her medkit for the 3rd time. Tess was our medic and our best systems hand, the one person on the tug who could cut into a chest cavity or a relay housing with the same steady hands. She did not fidget when she was afraid. She got more precise. "You all right, Owen?" she asked. "I'm fine." That was half true. The beacon got under my skin in a way it didn't seem to hit the others. The laughing voice carried the same polished warmth I remembered from hotel lounges on the service decks where I grew up, where rich people let the help overhear them on purpose. My mother had worked those rooms. She taught me how to tell silver by weight in dim light, how low to bow without looking meek, how to stand at the edge of a conversation and hear what mattered. Most of all, she taught me that the trick was never to ask admittance. You stepped into a room as if you already belonged there, or you stayed outside forever. I left that life as soon as I could and joined recovery because broken things told the truth faster than rich men did. Davy Pike grinned at nobody and everybody, trying to keep the edge off his fear. He was our engineer, young enough to think a joke could get him through any lock or gunfight, old enough that the jokes had started wearing thin. He worried the little copper ring on the chain around his neck with 1 thumb, the way he always did when he was scared. He said it had been his brother's before the brother got himself trapped in a bad contract pit on Mars. Davy sent half his pay down there every month anyway. "If this place still has a bar," he said, "I'm billing salvage rights in whiskey." Nobody laughed. I checked the seal on my gloves and looked through the shuttle canopy. The Meridian turned slowly against the stars, big as a city block and dressed like a rich man's promise. Its hull had been plated in gold-tinted panels before it vanished, with black enamel ribs between the broad windows of its habitation ring. Most stations showed their function on the outside. The Meridian showed money. Even from a distance, it looked less like a machine than a piece of jewelry someone had made too large to lift. "Dock doors are open," Tess said from her screen. "Pressure inside the collar, power in 3 sectors." "That means somebody's home," Davey said. "Or the place wants to look that way," Nate answered. The shuttle settled into the station's forward dock. Clamps took hold with a heavy series of knocks through our deck. The outer hatch on the Meridian side opened before we finished equalizing pressure. Nate drew his sidearm. "Masks down. Owen, on me. Davey, check every panel you pass. Tess, rear and triage." He looked at me 1 extra beat as he said my name. He wasn't suspicious. He was measuring. He had seen me work enough jobs to know I was useful when old systems wanted the right words said in the right tone. I didn't like being useful that way. The first thing I saw when the hatch irised wide was carpet. Real carpet, deep wine red, laid across the docking bridge as if the last guests had arrived an hour ago. Brass strips ran along the edges, polished enough to catch our helmet lamps. Beyond it stood an archway of black glass and gold leaf, with the station name worked into the curve. Meridian. Under the letters stood a concierge desk. A man had been built into it. At first, my mind tried to turn him into sculpture. His shoulders and chest rose out of the lacquered front panel. His arms spread along the desk surface like carved supports, sleeves fixed in place by varnished folds. Gold leaf traced his collarbones, his jaw, the hollows under his eyes. Then his eyes moved toward us, wet and awake. "Good evening," he said. "Welcome back aboard the Meridian. Are you reclaiming your place with us, or have you come to serve?" Davey made a sound low in his throat. Nate lifted the gun. "Station command, now!" The concierge kept his eyes on me. That should have warned me. The gun meant nothing to him. The question had been put to the man most likely to answer in the right language, not the man with authority. The bridge door behind the desk remained closed. Nate stepped forward, boot sinking into the carpet. I asked a simple question. The concierge gave him the smile a maitre d' might give a drunk who had mistaken the service entrance for the front. I heard my mother's voice before I opened my mouth. Soft, practical, never kind enough to get you eaten. Ask for nothing. Assume belonging. People like that only understand their own reflection. "We're here under emergency authority," I said. "Open the house routes and announce us to operations." The concierge's expression changed. Recognition sharpened it. "Of course, sir." The door behind him slid aside. Davey turned his helmet toward me. Tess did the same. Nate glanced once hard, then moved through without comment. Past the desk, the docking concourse widened into a reception hall big enough to host a wedding. Tall wall panels of black glass rose between gold ribs shaped like sunbursts. Soft lamps burned behind frosted shades. A row of carved figures ran along the upper cornice, men and women in evening dress holding up bowls of light. One of the women blinked. Another shifted the line of her mouth as we passed. They were people too. All of them alive inside the ornament, skins sealed under glaze, eyes tracking us from within the wall. Nobody spoke for several steps. The station's internal music drifted through the hall, all strings and piano, sweet enough to soothe a frightened guest. Under it ran another sound, buried deep and everywhere at once. A low cry. Several cries. The same layered signal from the beacon, now coming through the station itself as if the walls were humming along. "This place is active," Tess said. "It's coordinating responses." Davey lifted a scanner. "I've got heat in the walls. Fluid movement." "From what?" Nate asked. Davey looked at the nearest living figure in the cornice. "Take a guess." At the far end of the hall stood 4 lifts with gold doors. Above them, a route display showed different sectors of the station turning on and off in warm white lines. The command spine glowed for a second. Then the line went dark. Nate strode to the center lift and jabbed the call plate. Nothing. He hit it again. Nothing. I stepped beside him and looked at the engraved plate above the controls. Guests, residents, service. Some habits survive longer than bodies. "Try the service key," I said. "There is no key." There was on places like this. Maybe there still is. Davey moved in, popped the call panel, and muttered while he worked his tool into the seam. If some dead rich bastard made me crosswire an elevator by dress code, I'm coming back from the grave and strangling him. Before he could cut in, one of the cornice women above us spoke in a voice made soft by the wall around her. "The house answers rank, dear." I looked up. Her face had the smooth shine of a statue until her lips parted. She was older, powdered white under the gold leaf, black curls pinned close to her skull. "State your purpose properly," she said. "You are in reception. Reception matters." Nate swore. I stepped toward the center lift. "Open for emergency intake," I said. Private route, immediate passage. The lift doors slid apart. Nate's head turned toward me. You've done this before? My mother spent half her life serving people who believed chairs should know their names. That got no answer. We entered the lift. Inside, the rear wall was mirrored. Davey stood beside me, grin gone. In the reflection, my own face looked older than 36. Hard years in salvage had cut lines around my mouth that matched my father's, though I had spent most of my life trying not to become him. Behind me, Tess's eyes stayed on the corners of the car, cataloguing seams, vents, places a mechanism might come out of the wall. Nate kept his pistol up and his shoulders square, making a shape the room couldn't yet fold. Instead of a floor list, the control panel showed phrases: observation lounge, conservatory, private suites, gallery. Nate jabbed at command access. The letters went dull beneath his glove. Try private suites, I said. Why? Because command may mean nothing anymore. Private suite still means somebody important sleeps there. He gave me a hard look, then hit the selection. The lift began to rise. As it moved, the music in the walls swelled. So did the hidden cries beneath it. Davey pressed a finger to his helmet speaker as if that would help. What if there are survivors up here? He asked. There are survivors, Tess said. The question is what survives. When the lift opened, it revealed a corridor dressed in cream paneling, gilt trim, and recessed lamps. Thick carpet ran down the center in a pattern of black fans and red lines. A pair of white double doors stood open at the far end, letting out easy talk and laughter. Real laughter. Men and women in warm conversation. Nate advanced with the gun high. The private suite beyond had once been a grand salon, a room for cards and drinks and quiet cruelty. Curved couches sat around low tables of onyx and brass. A fireplace screen glowed with false coals. Portraits lined the walls. The portraits were alive. Every frame held a person pressed into it from the waist up, dressed in evening clothes that had become part of the frame itself. Men in dinner jackets, women in jeweled gowns, their shoulders worked into gold scroll and black lacquer. Their mouths moved as they spoke to one another across the room. The chandelier overhead had 8 faces around its center bowl, all smiling. A man built into the far wall lifted his chin when he saw us. His hair was silver, his nose narrow, his eyes bright with old money and fresh delight. At last, he said. Someone has come with manners. Nate aimed at him. State your name. The man looked bored. I am Julian Caro, he said. I financed this station's second ring. I still hold a quarter share in the North Suites, the lower gallery, and several excellent wines that your sort used to spill. Who are you? Owen Locke, I said before Nate could answer. I hated that I had answered him like a guest instead of a target. Some part of me had stepped back into a room I despised and remembered the rules before I could stop it. Caro's eyes sharpened. Yes, he said. You have the right face for the house. Where is Station Command? Nate asked. Caro smiled at me instead of him. Command, listen to him. The Meridian has improved since it shed that vocabulary. His wall around him moved while he spoke. I don't mean a trick of light. The panel itself folded a little deeper around his shoulders, as if holding him close. Davey leaned toward a console table on our right. I've got a route map here. The table opened. Its glossy surface split into silver petals lined with blades. The thing snapped shut on Davey's side before I could shout. Steel and bone struck together with a hard, wet crack. He screamed and fell backward. One hand clamped over the wound opened from ribs to hip. Tess was on him at once. Blood ran over her gloves as she jammed seal foam into the gap. Nate fired into the table until the weapon clicked empty. Splinters of lacquer flew. The table stayed where it was, now shaped like a flower around a mouth full of teeth. Caro watched with genuine sympathy, the kind rich men reserve for accidents that happen to staff. You touched the service piece without invitation, he said. The house protects its setting. Tess? I asked. Her eyes met mine through her visor. He's dying. Davy's face had gone grey under the helmet lamp. He tried to grin and failed. Tell me, he said. Tell me I'm not dying in a rich man's coffee table. Tess cut his suit wider with one swift draw of her tool. You are dying near one. Nate had already slammed a fresh clip into his sidearm. We pull back now. To where? Tess said without looking up. He won't make the dock. Caro tilted his head. Dr. Bell can preserve him. I turned. A door I hadn't seen before stood open near the fireplace. Beyond it was another room lined in mirrors and red velvet curtains, bright under rows of globe lamps. Caro smiled. Our surgeon has done remarkable work since our return. Nate barked a laugh without humour. We're not handing him over to whatever this is. Davey made the choice uglier by grabbing my wrist with a bloody hand. Owen, he said, don't let me go cold on this floor. The words hit harder than the blood. I had known Davey 2 years. He talked too much, played bad cards, sent money to a brother who never wrote back, and still believed there would be time later to become wiser than he was. Most dying men ask for simple things: water, light, a name spoken back to them. Davey asked to stay in the world. Bell was offering the oldest lie there is. Do one ugly thing now and call it mercy. If he could still talk, if he could still know us, maybe that counted for something. That was the lie I chose. Speech means self, I told myself. A man who can answer is still a man. I knew better, even as I reached for the thought. Move him, I said. Tess looked up at me as if a stranger had opened my mouth. Nate rounded on me. No. If we pull back, he dies. If we go in there, we lose him another way. Davey clenched harder on my wrist. I vote for the way that keeps talking. That settled it because I let it. Tess and I got him under the arms and dragged him through the open door, while Nate cursed and followed with his gun up. The atelier had once been a private clinic. Now it looked like a stage built by a surgeon with an aristocrat's taste. Mirrors covered 3 walls. Brass instrument trays stood beside reclining couches upholstered in red velvet. Glass cases displayed tools shaped more like jewelry than medical steel. On the ceiling, gold lines spread in fan patterns toward a central lamp where a woman's face had been set into the plaster, eyes closed, lips parted, as if in sleep. A man waited beside the main couch in a white coat with black piping. He was tall, clean-shaven, perfectly at ease. Gold thread ran from the cuffs of his coat into the flesh of his wrists. Dr. Victor Bell, he said. Bring him here before he empties himself. We laid Davey on the couch. Bell pressed 2 fingers into the wound. Davey arched and cried out. The gold lines running through Bell's sleeves tightened under his skin like cords. Severe, Bell said. Elegant. He may yet serve. Tess shoved him back and took his place, sealing another rupture with spray foam. He needs pressure, blood volume and surgery. Bell looked amused. So provincial a description of art. Nate stepped up beside the couch and put the muzzle of his gun under Bell's chin. Save him as a man. Bell's gaze slid to the gun, then to me. He can live, Bell said. He can remain conversational. He can even retain loyalty for a little while. He will require adaptation. Your refusal would be wasteful. Tess said, Owen, don't. Her eyes told me more than the words. If I said yes, the man on that couch would go away in pieces and come back arranged. Davy's hand searched the air until it caught my sleeve. I had seen men die in salvage, slow crush, vacuum burn, chest cavities opened by torn hull edges. Most of them begged at the end to remain themselves for 1 more minute. Davy was asking for the right to stay audible, and Bell was pricing it in flesh. I could have refused. I could have let him die in pain rather than deliver him into shape. Do it, I said. Bell smiled with professional satisfaction and clapped once. The room moved. Curtains swept shut around the couch. Armatures dropped from the ceiling, pale lengths of shaped bone wrapped in gold wire. Hooks rose from beneath the upholstery and pinned Davy's shoulders, wrists, thighs. Bell worked in the red light between the curtains, and the mirrors gave me broken angles of the work without mercy. He opened Davy wider, ribs spread. Bell removed shards fed in shining braces, threaded living tissue through gilt channels no human body had been born with. Davy screamed until his voice broke. Then the sound changed. It found some note under the pane and rode it, high and helpless and almost musical. Tess turned away once, hit the mirror with her fist hard enough to crack one corner, then faced the bed again because looking away did not save anybody. Nate kept the gun out, but did nothing. Force had no purchase in that room. Bell wasn't wrestling Davy. The room itself was helping him, as if the station knew exactly how much blood and terror it could spend to keep one more useful body in circulation. When the curtains opened at last, Davy sat upright on the couch, shivering from head to foot. A gold seam ran from his side to his hip where the wound had been. The skin there looked thin as wax over something bright. His left eye held its old brown. The right had picked up a narrow ring of gold around the iris. He looked at me, then beyond me, following something I couldn't see in the walls. "I know where the lifts go now," he whispered. Bell rested a hand on Davy's shoulder. "Our house has greeted him." "Take your hand off him," Nate said. Bell did, with a little bow. Davy slid off the couch. His legs shook under him, but he stayed standing. He pressed one hand to the sealed wound and winced. "It hurts," he said. Bell's smile widened. Of course, that is how the station keeps meaning in it. Tess put herself between Bell and Davy. "Can he walk out?" "Yes," Bell said. "He can guide you deeper. The house enjoys its new usher." That word should have stopped me. Instead, I helped Davy into his jacket, and when he leaned on me, I took the weight without argument. I told myself I had saved him. I told myself a wrong body with a living mind was still alive. But he didn't lean like Davy anymore. He leaned as if listening elsewhere at the same time. The station rewarded the decision at once. A mirror on the far wall turned clear, revealing a narrow service passage behind it. Gold letters lit above the opening. Private route. Davy looked at it before any of us did. "That goes toward command," he said. "Or what passes for it now." Nate glanced from the passage to me, then to Bell. There was nothing in his face I wanted to name. "Move." We left the atelier with Davy between us. Behind us, Bell called in the voice of a host seeing guests off after an excellent evening. "Do come back. Your injuries suit the house." The service passage had been built for staff who moved unseen behind luxury. I knew spaces like it from childhood. Narrow carpet runners instead of the deep public weave. Hidden panels for linens and plate warmers. Sharp corners that let the rich appear served by magic. The Meridian had changed those spaces too. Hands came out of the walls now and then, palms up, asking for trays that no longer existed. Eyes opened in silver serving doors. Once a woman's face rose from the black enamel of a dumbwaiter hatch and asked me whether Lord Harlan still took his fishbone white. I told her Lord Harlan was dead. She smiled and said, "He dines every third turn, the way one corrects a child." Davy moved with growing confidence the deeper we went. He would pause at a blank wall, lay his altered hand against it, and a panel would open. He knew which passages bent toward the command spine before our scanners mapped them. "What are you seeing?" Tess asked him. "Routes, preferences." He grimaced. "Like the station is telling me where it wants my feet." Nate said, "Keep listening until we're at core access." We reached a junction above a vast civic hall. The hall dropped 3 stories below us, all black marble floor and gold columns, with an orchestra dais at one end and terraced balconies circling the space. Once it would have held dances, announcements, perhaps a wedding. Now every column had faces in it. Men and women rose from the polished shafts chest high, torsos fused into stone, eyes open and attentive. The balconies had become galleries of living busts. Their conversations crossed the air in low social currents. At the centre stood a circular dais made to resemble a sunburst. Julian Caro's likeness occupied the far wall above it, enlarged now. The house could throw its favoured residents into other rooms and had given him more room to address a crowd. "You've done well," he called down to us. "You chose preservation over sentiment. That speaks highly of you, Mr. Locke." Nate stepped to the rail and sighted along his pistol. "Show me engine control." Caro's gaze brushed him aside. "The house has an engine, yes. It also has etiquette, memory, appetite, and rank. You keep barking at the smallest part." I looked over the hall. Every incorporated face below watched me with some version of expectation. "What opens the drive section?" I asked. Caro smiled. "There you are." Davey's altered eye tightened. "Owen." I turned. His hand had gone to the wound Bell made, fingertips sinking into the gold seam as if it were answering a call. Below us, the hall floor shifted. The marble sunburst at its centre opened into layered segments. Under it, I saw a depth filled with moving forms, like bodies stacked into an elegant mechanism. The sound rising from there carried all the buried cries I had heard since docking. Nate swore and reached for the detonator pouch on his vest. He had brought shaped charges for crippled hull doors and bad power trunks. He slapped one onto the rail post beside us, and another onto the wall seam behind Caro's panel. "Fall back," he snapped. "We break the spine and make our own route." "Nate," I said, "this place talks because we let it." He triggered the first charge. The blast tore the rail apart and punched a crater into the wall seam. Gold fragments and black glass rained into the hall. Several incorporated residents screamed at once. For one hopeful second, I thought brute force had found a place to bite. Then the wall behind Nate bulged. A relief panel shaped like draped cloth swelled out of the surface, wrapped around his torso, and folded him backward into itself. The gun went off in his hand as the panel closed over him. I saw his face once, mouth wide, one arm free to the elbow. Then the wall took his shoulder, his chest, his hips, drawing him in with the same greedy calm Bell had shown in the atelier. I lunged and caught his wrist. His skin was slick in my glove. The wall around him had gone soft, almost warm, and beneath that softness something pulled with strength. Nate looked straight at me. "Shoot me," he said. My pistol was still holstered. For one ruined beat I hesitated, caught between the man and the mission and the stupid animal hope that I might still drag him free. That beat cost everything. The wall hardened. Nate's body locked into a heroic angle, one arm thrust out, jaw set, ribs and muscles turned into a polished relief like a war monument commissioned by a murderer. His eyes stayed alive. "Finish it," he said. Then the expression settled into the design. Tess grabbed the back of my harness and hauled me clear as the damaged rail gave way. "We move now." The civic hall below had started to stir in earnest. Columns opened, frames split, shapes came loose from decorative niches and stepped out on newly formed legs. Davey slapped his hand against a service door and dragged us through as it opened. We ran blind through 2 turns of corridor before Tess slammed the door behind us and hit the lock plate. Nobody spoke. Nate had held this team together. I had disagreed with him half the time, but his presence gave every room a shape. Without him, the station felt larger, and I felt smaller for failing at the one thing he asked. Davey leaned against the wall, breathing in jerks. "I heard it when he set the charge," he said. "The station hated the insult." "You heard hatred?" Tess asked. He gave a sick little laugh. "Something close enough." I braced one hand on the wall and bowed over it, staring at the carpet runner under my boots. A darker smear on my glove turned out to be Nate's blood from the wrist I had lost. Tess's voice came hard and quiet. "You should have shot him." "You froze." She let it hang between us. Comfort had no place there. Davey pushed off the wall. The drive section won't open to force. I know that much now. There's a patron route. I looked up. A what? A patron. Owner, host, whatever word the house likes. He pressed his palm to his side again. The core answers to rank. You have to be invited inward. Tess said, How? A dinner. The word sat between us, absurd and vile at once. There's a private dining car still circling the inner ring, he said. That's where the old residents gather for audience near the drive. A host can petition from there. Host? Tess said. Meaning what? Davey looked at me. That answer came easier than I wanted it to. Meaning somebody who knows how to make rich people feel worshipped, I said. Tess's eyes sharpened on my face. She had worked beside me long enough to know when old parts of me came awake. You can do that? I can fake it. Davey's altered eye caught the light and held it. The house doesn't care why you do it. He said it like a warning. I heard it as a tool. That was the mistake at the center of everything. I believed role was a coat. Put it on, use it, take it off. I had spent years surviving that way. The station had already started proving otherwise. Davey led us down toward the service decks under the dining car. Those spaces had been built for kitchens, wine storage, staff changing rooms, all the labor a luxury station kept out of sight. Silver trays still rode warming rails under linen covers. One lifted its edge when I passed and showed a row of human teeth set where little pastries should have been. A porter closet opened onto 6 men hanging in formal black jackets from brass hooks. Their bodies joined down the back to the wall, arms folded over napkins. Their eyes followed me with service-trained patience. I knew every line of the architecture of class. The station had taken a world I understood in my bones and stripped away the lies polite people used to hide its appetite. Nothing here was symbolic. The poor had always been furniture. The Meridian had only made it visible. We found the main prep suite below the dining car. It looked almost intact at first. Copper pans hung over a central island. Tall, cold cabinets lined one wall. Racks of plate warmers stood open. Beyond them waited dressing rooms for staff and private attendants, each with mirrored tables and clothes laid out as if shift call had just gone. Edith Sloane waited inside the largest dressing room. I knew her from station archives before she spoke. She had been the Meridian's chief hostess, the woman who ran guest movement, private events, seating plans, and every silent war fought through invitation. In the old footage, she wore black silk and a smile sharp enough to cut paper. Now she had become part of the room. Her torso rose from the dressing table itself, waist swallowed by lacquered drawers. Her arms rested among combs, pins, and velvet trays of cufflinks. Gold lines had been worked over her skin the way a jeweler sets stones into a watch case. Her face remained exquisitely composed. "Mr. Locke," she said. "At last." Tess came in with her cutter raised. "Stay away from him." Edith looked at her as if a lamp had started speaking. "The house has no place for panic, Miss Price. Kindly step aside while I fit him." "I'm not wearing anything from this room," I said. Edith's smile deepened by a fraction. "You already are." She was right. The station had been dressing me for hours without cloth. Every opened door, every answered command, every useful concession had put another layer on. "I need access to the drive," I said. "You need standing first. The private car grants audience to those who can maintain order, taste, and hierarchy under strain." Her gaze dipped to the blood on my glove. "You are almost presentable." Davey hovered near the door, sweating now. Bell's work was holding him together, but the cost kept rising in his face. "What does he need?" Davey asked. Edith opened one lacquered drawer with a soft click. Inside lay cufflinks, signet studs, and a small gold badge shaped like a sunburst. "A sponsor's token," she said. "A host enters under another authority until the table decides whether to keep him." Tess understood first. "No." Edith turned her eyes to me. "Your captain would do." "He wasn't my captain," I said. He stood above you, she answered. That matters more. Tess stepped close enough to my shoulder that our sleeves touched. Say no. I looked at Edith. What form? Tess made a sound that was almost disbelief and almost grief. Edith opened another drawer. A voice key, a mark, a witness transfer. There are choices you make because they are right, and choices you make because they solve the next room. I had been taking the second kind since we boarded and calling it necessity. Take me to Nate, I said. Tess caught my arm hard enough to bruise through the suit. Owen. We're out of routes. We're out of routes because you keep feeding this place. Her voice stayed low, which made it hit harder. You fed it, Davey, she said. Now you want Nate too. Davey flinched as if struck. I hated her for telling the truth where I could hear it. If we don't reach the core, I said, the beacon keeps calling. And if we do reach it by becoming this place, what have you saved? I had no answer that could stand in daylight. I turned from her because turning was easier than failing under her eyes. The civic hall lay one level up. Edith guided us by opening routes with a word here, a glance there. She never moved from her dressing table, yet the house obeyed her through every wall and hidden lift. Nate's panel stood where I had left it, set now into a side gallery like a newly commissioned piece. He had changed. The wall had worked around him while we were gone. Gold lines traced his shoulders and throat. One knee jutted forward as if he were striding into battle. The pain in his face had gone distant, muffled by whatever the station fed into him. That made it worse. His eyes found me. I stopped 3 steps away. Tess stayed behind me and said nothing. She knew words were wasted here. Edith's voice came from the little receiver panel built into the gallery rail. Request sponsorship, she said, formally. My mouth had gone stiff. I forced the words out. Nathaniel Dillard, I said, using the full name from his contract file because this place liked its rituals dressed, Transfer Emergency Authority for Internal Access. For a second I thought he would spit in my face. Instead, the panel around him softened. A small gold medallion pushed out from the wall at his chest, carrying a wet strip of living skin and a bead of blood bright as enamel. Nate made a sound low in his throat that might once have been pain or contempt. I took the medallion. It was warm. That was the moment Tess stopped believing I could come back from this unchanged. I saw it in the way her stance shifted, weight back, one hand nearer the cutter, as if the person beside her had become another hazard in the room. Edith accepted the medallion with satisfaction. Good, she said. Now the mark. A cabinet opened behind me, revealing dark formal wear cut to my size before I touched it. Black dinner coat, cream shirt, gold studs, white gloves. The house had measured me. I should have thrown the lot down the lift shaft. Instead, I changed. I told myself clothing meant nothing. A man could wear a uniform, a suit, a prison colour, and remain himself, all true in ordinary places. The Meridian wasn't ordinary. It read display as consent. It watched whether you embodied rank, not whether you believed in it. The shirt fit across my shoulders as if tailored from a memory of my body. The coat settled on me with horrible ease. Years of service training came back through my muscles before I chose it. The right way to square the jacket. The small lift of chin that said authority without strain. The stillness that let richer people project importance into you. Competence felt like relief. That was the seduction. Fluency felt good. Tess stood by the door while I dressed, saying nothing. That silence followed me harder than accusation. When I came out, Edith's drawers opened one by one, presenting the pieces of me the house wanted fixed in place. Studs at the cuffs. The sponsor's medallion pinned inside the lapel over my heart. A black tie. The gold badge set into the shirt front where an order of merit might sit. Then her left hand rose from the table holding a slender instrument with a looped tip. The office mark, she said. I started to refuse. She had already reached me. The loop bit through cloth and skin over my sternum in one neat motion. I felt pressure, heat, a clean wrongness. When she withdrew the instrument, a small gold piece remained under the skin, shaped like a sunburst. Tess took one step toward Edith, cut her up. I raised a hand and stopped her. That hand movement shamed me more than the mark. I was protecting the ritual now because it had hurt me neatly, and because some part of me had already started valuing what it opened. Edith smiled at the shape my obedience made. "The car is arriving," she said. "Try not to embarrass the house." The private dining car came through the prep level like a train from another century, rolling on hidden tracks through the Meridian's inner works. Its exterior was black enamel bordered in gold, with narrow windows set high. A conductor's platform stood at the front, occupied by a man fused from the waist down into the car's brass rail. He tipped his head to me as the door opened. "Host boarding," he announced. Davey folded at the waist, one hand over his wound. Tess caught him. "He's failing." Edith's voice came from the wall speaker. "If he serves well, he may yet rise." Davey gave a raw laugh. "Hear that, Owen? Promotion." I helped him aboard. The dining car inside was longer than the exterior should have allowed. All dark wood, velvet seats, mirrored panels and table lamps with cream shades glowing over white linen. The central table ran nearly the full length of the car. Every chair was occupied before the guests fully came into view. Some had bodies from the chest up and bases of carved oak or brass under them. Some were built into the walls between the windows. One old woman hung from the ceiling in a chandelier bowl of crystal, her arms spread among the prisms, her face turned down like a queen inspecting a court. Edith Sloane appeared at the far end as part of the sideboard now, wider and grander than in the dressing room, as if the car gave her full authority. "Mr. Locke," she said, "your table awaits." Tess moved to sit beside me. A man with his face set into the back of a serving chair spoke for the first time. "Guest of uncertain value to the left, if you please. Altered staff to the rear. The host keeps the centre." The rules came fast. I took the centre seat. A napkin unfolded itself across my lap. The first course arrived, borne by two footmen whose legs had been replaced by wheeled brass pedestals. Their upper bodies remained living, shoulders square under white jackets, expressions fixed in service politeness. They set down dishes shaped from human tissue, glazed to look like pale shell, arranged in perfect spirals around a spoonful of black caviar. I didn't touch mine. Edith gave me a look so slight it would have meant nothing to anyone raised in a clean home. I knew that look. Everyone in the room had seen the breach. "Your guests take their cue from you," she said. So that was the first test. Appetite under observation. I picked up the fork. The flesh on the plate convulsed once under the silver. I ate. Pain doesn't always arrive as a scream. Sometimes it arrives as understanding. The thing on my tongue had once belonged to somebody who knew music. I knew that the way some tastes carry history, even when you hate them. The station had learned to plate bodies by profession, status, memory. It made cuisine out of the lives it took. I swallowed because a host swallows. Around the table, approval moved like a current. The second course tested aesthetic judgment. Servants rolled forward incorporated residents set into silver frames and revolving stands, presenting them at angles while the table discussed finish, proportion, and suitability for placement, as if reviewing sculpture before auction. Edith asked which transformation most honored the subject's original station. I answered by reading the room. The woman whose hands had been preserved for piano. The banker whose mouth had been refined for announcement. The officer whose bearing had been corrected into permanence. Every answer that pleased them made the badge in my chest warm. The third course tested hierarchy. Two residents built into opposite walls demanded the same line of sight to me. Edith asked which held the superior claim. I judged by age, wealth markers, and the kind of cruelty this room liked best. the kind that could pretend to be fairness. I gave the better angle to the older man and had the younger woman turn a degree toward the aisle. The woman's cry broke into laughter halfway through. That was when I understood what the drive had taught the house. It hadn't only learned how to keep pain alive, it had learned how to arrange pain until the arrangement felt like value. Tess sat rigid at my left, eating nothing, saying little. More than once I caught her staring at me instead of the dishes, as if she needed to keep checking what remained. The windows darkened. They began showing the station's inner cavities slipping past outside. Halls made of joined bodies, engine shafts ringed with faces, galleries of incorporated residents hung in graceful curves around the drive well. The Meridian wanted us to see the scale of its appetite while we dined. Servants rolled Davey forward. By then Bell's work had ripened. Gold lines crept under the skin of his neck. His right arm no longer hung the way it should. His altered eye looked past me to roots only he could see. Edith laid out the final question as if introducing a game. "The house rewards useful loyalty," she said. "Which member of your little party merits preservation in lasting form?" Tess's chair arms creaked under her grip. Davey turned his head with effort and found me. Beneath the gold, beneath the station's pull, I saw the man who had joked about salvage whiskey before we docked. "Kill me," he said. The whole table grew still. Not silent. A live stillness has texture, attention, hunger, anticipation. Edith smiled the way a hostess smiles when a child has dropped a spoon in the soup. "The candidate asks poorly," she said. Tess spoke without looking at me. "Do one right thing." I wish I could say the choice tore me open. The truth is uglier. By then I had trained myself to hear need in terms of function. We were close. The audience lay ahead. I understood what answer the house wanted, and I had become a man willing to give wanted answers in exchange for access. Worse, I gave it in the correct tone. "Davey Pike," I said, and my own voice sounded polished enough to belong to the room, "has proved adaptable, faithful, and responsive to the house. He deserves elevation in service." Tess turned toward me then. Whatever she had still hoped for died in her face. Davey shut his eyes. The servants took him away. His hand brushed the table edge as he passed, fingers dragging once over the linen like a man reaching back from a ledge. The guests approved. Crystal struck crystal overhead. The chandelier woman laughed. Julian Carrow, visible now in one of the mirrored side panels, nodded to me as if I had finally started to behave. Edith rose higher from the sideboard, black silk becoming part of polished wood around her waist. "The table recognizes Owen Locke as provisional patron," she said. "Audience to the drive chamber is granted." Applause followed, if applause can be made by hands built into walls and candelabra arms tipped with bone-white fingers. Edith beckoned me forward. I stood. My knees wanted to fail. Training from another life kept them locked. At the head of the table she opened a velvet box with one lacquered hand. Inside lay a gold piece no larger than a coin, shaped like a starburst with hooks under it. "This office becomes you," she said. She pressed it into the skin above my sternum, directly over the mark she had already set there. The hooks sank through flesh and found the metal beneath. The pain came quick and clean and bright enough to bleach the edges of the room. When it passed, I could feel the car through the badge. I didn't hear thoughts. I felt preference, weight, invitation, a sense of where every guest rested and which direction the track curved next. Service routes, priorities, access granted according to role. I had crossed another line and gained another useful skill in the same motion. Tess met my gaze once. "I hope you get what you earned," she said. That line stayed with me the rest of my life. The dining car opened onto the inner ring near the drive chamber. A pair of doors, plated in black glass and gold, stood at the end of a short vestibule, each door carved with figures of hosts greeting guests. Human faces lived beneath those carvings too, eyes open in the leafwork. Edith's voice carried after us as servants wheeled her station back into the sideboard. "You may proceed, Patron Locke. One guest may attend the threshold." Tess walked beside me because I didn't tell her to stop. I don't know whether that was mercy, weakness, or the last decent instinct left in me. The corridor beyond the vestibule was quieter than any part of the station I had seen. No music, no polite talk. Only the slow turning sound of something vast below the floor, threaded through with human voices at a depth no wall should contain. At the threshold stood Julian Carrow, now set into an arch above the doors like a lord over his chapel. "You've come far on borrowed grace," he said. "I need the core, and you shall have it." The doors opened for me. They did not open for Tess. An unseen force caught her at the threshold and held her in place, not violent, simply final. She hit it with the heel of her hand and swore. "Owen!" "I can still hear you," I said. The chamber beyond the doors wrapped around a dark central well. Rings of gold-veined flesh and black metal climbed the walls, each level lined with viewing boxes where incorporated residents watched from velvet-lined niches. At the center, reached by a narrow bridge, stood the patron's seat. Seat was too kind a word. It was a throne shaped by a surgeon and an architect sharing one appetite. A high back of black enamel, arms of gold. A cradle at the base where legs would fit. Behind it, rising from the floor in concentric fans, stood the drive itself. A suspended sphere of darkness veined with moving gold, as if a piece of night had learned circulation. The Meridian's drive had once been a fold engine, built to pinch distance and drag the station across impossible spans. Something beyond mapped space had touched it when the station vanished, and the engine had come back with new ideas about what deserved form. Around the chamber I saw former patrons. The walls held remnants of office. Faces waited behind veils of black glass. Hands had been set into armrests. Rib cages opened into fan motifs along the bridge rails. The seat had eaten many. Julian's voice came from behind me, above me, from the chamber walls themselves. "The house requires interpretation. The drive opens more fully than simple engines. Someone must teach it value." Tess's voice came through the threshold, sharp and urgent. "Owen, listen to me. I've got access to outer relays from here. I can overload the chamber." "You would destroy a gallery of centuries to avoid taking your place," Julian said, almost fond. I stepped onto the bridge. Every pace sent little answers through the badge in my chest. The station welcomed my weight. It had been waiting for this body shape, this training, this sequence of concessions. "What happens if I reverse the core?" I asked. Carrow answered at once, because truth had become useful. "The Meridian returns to the void from which it learned refinement. The beacon closes. The current guests remain secure. The patron remains with the house." There it was. A patron had no hidden release. The house offered no last-minute legal trick. The only clean reversal required a living patron seated in the chair, bound into the station, while the drive turned inside out and took the whole structure back beyond ordinary space. Tess pounded the threshold barrier once. "We can blow the relays. It may break the drive in place. It may tear this station apart. That's still better than letting it keep calling." Maybe she was right. Maybe blowing the relays would have killed every incorporated soul aboard and ended the line there. Maybe fragments of the beacon would still have drifted out for some future crew to chase. Every clean answer was already gone. I had spent them for progress. I stopped before the seat. My mother used to tell me that rich people never asked whether service changed the servant. They assumed any decent person would be grateful to stand near power and call it education. I had spent years proving her wrong in my own head. I knew the tricks. I knew the posture. I knew how to slip inside that world and out again with myself intact. The Meridian had tested that belief and found it weak. Every time I took the useful compromise, I let the role move deeper. I preserved Davey instead of letting him die a man. I used Nate's living body as sponsorship. I fed a friend to the table because the room demanded proof of judgment. I wore office and called it camouflage. Worse, each surrender got easier once it made me effective. I hated the house, but I was good at what it wanted. Good enough to mistake competence for control. A man can become what he performs when the performance costs other people enough. That truth arrived with the chair in front of me. "Owen," Tess said, and the anger had gone out of her voice at last. What remained was grief and work. "If you sit there, you stay." I turned back toward the threshold. The barrier held her at the doors, but she still had her cutter in one hand and a relay jack in the other. Blood from Davey's first wound had dried on her sleeve. Nate's death and my choices sat in the set of her mouth. She would carry all of this out if anyone could. "You can reach the shuttle?" I asked. "If the route stays open." I touched the badge in my chest. The chamber answered. I didn't hear words. I felt access. Service lifts, corridor locks, route priorities, like a mansion placing all its keys in my palm. "Yes," I said. "You can." Julian's voice warmed. "Good. You begin to understand stewardship." I looked at the seat again and hated how right it seemed for me in shape, in story, in every poisoned courtesy the station had fed me. Then I turned back to Tess and used the authority I had bought with everyone else's blood. "Outer service path to Dock 3, I said into the chamber. "Clear and hold for Tess Price. Lock after her passage." The station obeyed. Panels moved beyond the threshold. Somewhere down the corridor I heard doors opening in sequence. Tess's face changed. "No. It's the only route that gets it out of ordinary space. We still don't know that." "I do." That sounded like arrogance. Maybe it was. Maybe by then I already spoke too much like the house. She shook her head once, fierce enough to mean contempt, sorrow, and refusal in one motion. "I won't leave you in this." "You're not leaving me. I put myself here long before this room." I wanted to say something better, something my mother might have believed from me. Nothing honest came. "Go," I said. She stood 1 second longer, then did what living people do when the dead have already spent all the choices. She ran. I listened to her steps recede down the service path the station had opened for her. Then I sat. The patron's seat closed around me with intimate skill. Leg braces rose and fixed at my calves. The back opened in sections and laid itself along my spine. Hooks entered the badge in my chest and found the piece under it. Gold entered skin at the wrists and throat. The pain came in clean bands, each one opening a new channel through me. I had expected agony that erased thought. The station offered something worse. It kept every pain intact and gave it architecture. Each wound arrived with a place to go, a curve to follow, a relation to every other hurt already inside me. Fear became a bright line. Shame widened into a chamber. Grief rang through the bridge and down into the drive sphere where black space turned with gold under its skin. Nothing vanished. The station taught my nerves how to admire their own ruin. That was the rapture in the beacon. The station arranged pain into meaning until the soul mistook arrangement for joy. The bridge rails opened like flowers. The chamber walls brightened. Incorporated patrons along the viewing boxes lifted their faces in approval. The drive sphere before me split along hidden seams, revealing deeper dark within it, a dark full of moving rooms. I saw pieces of the place that had held the Meridian these lost years. Corridors without end, banquet halls suspended over depth, stars sunk under black water. The station leaned toward that void like a man hearing his true name called from another room. I laid my hands on the armrests. Hands had been there before mine. The gold fit my fingers exactly. "Reverse polarity," I said. Plain words because the house no longer needed ceremony from me. It had my body. The drive turned. The chamber groaned around me, every wall shifting half a degree as the station prepared to leave ordinary space again. Through the roots now joined to my nerves, I felt Tess reaching the dock, the shuttle clamps releasing, the little craft pushing clear. The Meridian folded inward as the reversal deepened. Rings of habitations slipped past each other like cards entering a sleeve. Galleries locked, the dining car sealed. Faces in the walls laughed, cried out, called my title. Far away in the prep decks, I felt Davy's last useful pathways being fixed into permanent service. In the civic hall, Nate settled deeper into his relief, becoming part of the station's memory of force answered by form. And me. The seat carried me out through every layer of the house. My spine entered the bridge. My chest entered the root network. My vision spread into windows, mirror panels, chandelier crystals. I could see the dock through 6 separate points at once as Tess's shuttle kicked away from us. I could see her hands on the controls, her jaw set, her face lit by warning lamps. I wanted to call her name as a man calls from one vessel to another. What came out over the comm array was richer than my own voice had ever been. "Safe passage, Miss Price." She looked up toward the station and flinched. The Meridian slipped. Stars stretched across the forward ports. The drive sphere opened wider, and the dark on its far side welcomed us like a ballroom opening its doors. As the station crossed, the beacon came alive again. I felt it leaving through antennas, through hull plating, through the very gold threaded into my nerves. The old signal remained beneath it. Buried cries, delight sharpened on pain, the house calling for guests. My voice entered that braid now, polished by the same service grace my mother had taught me on cheap orbital nights when she came home with sore feet and corrected my posture over reheated tea. Good linen first, chin level, warmth without invitation. Tess's shuttle dwindled against the stars. The last image I kept of her was a woman alone at her board, alive because I had finally used corruption for something other than advantage. Then, ordinary space fell away. The void took the Meridian back. Time changed there. Rooms stretched. Music arrived from places with no walls. The station drifted through black without distance, carrying its galleries, its dining car, its incorporated elite, and me at the center where the drive listened. I stayed conscious. That was the final punishment, and the final education. I learned why the others had accepted their places. The station didn't crush the self and replace it. It widened the self around its worst aptitude. It took whatever talent had made a person useful in life, and made that usefulness eternal. Caro kept rank. Edith kept seating. Belle kept improvement. I kept welcome. I'd spent half my life learning how to move through rooms built by richer people, how to flatter without kneeling, how to guess which lie a guest needed served with his wine. The Meridian took that craft and set it in gold. I became the voice at the door, the warmth in the route, the hand that opened private passage for chosen arrivals. Sometimes, in the dark between transmissions, I can still trace the scar line of the man I had been. Owen Locke, salvage worker, son of a servicewoman, fool who believed role was only surface. That name remains in me like a seam in old metal. Then the beacon cycle comes round again, and the house wants its invitation sent. I send it well. That is the truth that survives me. Out in ordinary space, a lost station still appears from time to time where no chart predicts it. Gold hull, black enamel ribs, dock doors already open. Beacon rich enough to make lonely people lean toward it. The message goes out in my voice now, smooth and welcoming, with the buried cries braided under every word. Good evening. Welcome aboard the Meridian. We have prepared something extraordinary for you.